Well, joining me now is Benham Ben Taleblu. He is the Iran Program Senior Director and a Senior Fellow with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Benham, it's great to have you here in studio tonight. So,
thank you.
As we just mentioned in that previous story, Israel is calling up tens of thousands of reservists. What does that tell you about the next phase of the war? And is 60,000 enough to win Gaza City?
Well, it really depends a lot on what your definition of win here is. But as we reach the 2-year mark of the larger multi-front war orchestrated against Israel and Israel's many military successes against a whole host of Iran-backed terror network, one thing is apparently clear to me, whether that's personnel issues or financial issues or even political issues, Israel, the state, is continuing to persevere. Now, politics, the potential drain on society and the economy, those were things worried about even when the first batch of reservists were called up for duty in mid-October in response to the October 7 Hamas terrorist attack against Israel. So these things that we worry about now, the impact on society, the economy, and on politics of this many reservists for this stage of the Gaza war, particularly when it is this contentious. Certainly, Israelis have dealt with smaller iterations of it, but at again this current juncture, I think we can't rest on our laurels here and just say because it hasn't the reserve issue hasn't really manifested itself in protests like the hostage issue has, doesn't mean that it's going to go down quite easy. Conversely, however, I think it's worth noting that the hullabaloo about reservist protests and reservists not actually showing up, that stuff hasn't also materialized.
Okay, I was just going to ask if you thought they should be more concerned about that, but as of right now, it doesn't look like it's been as explosive as some have.
Exactly, yeah.
I want to ask you also about whether you see a path to both a negotiated peace and also this ongoing military campaign.
Well, the problem, of course, is the Hamas leadership or what's left of it itself. There's some kind of ragtag, military infrastructure left in the tunnels. There's still, young guys essentially with guns who don't have a clear chain of command. And so when you have these guys still fighting, when you have a robust terror tunnel network still able to keep them in the field, you do have cities which have been turned to rubble, like Gaza City, essentially still pose a pretty potent threat and give these terrorists a fighting chance to live another day. So ultimately, until the military defeat is either imposed on them or until the Israeli government goes back and looks fundamentally differently at the hostage versus ceasefire equation politically, on the home front, we're going to see a lot more of the same. And a lot more of the same right now looks like intensifying military operations in Gaza.
Benham, up I-95 next week, it's going to be very busy in New York with the General Assembly, UN General Assembly. The United States has banned the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas from coming and speaking, giving his usual address. What message do you think the Trump administration is sending, especially when you have countries like Belgium, France, Canada, Australia, all saying that they will recognize Palestine as a state?
And they're going to be doing so at the United Nations General Assembly, where you won't have the head of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, there to preside. Certainly, if you look at the commentary, the political commentary coming out of the PA, some say that it is really lending political cover to Hamas's larger aims. This isn't just about the Palestinian cause. This is much about something much more nefarious, unfortunately. So while I think that was as much a political decision by the Trump administration as it is a legal decision, and it is also not unprecedented. As you know, Yasser Arafat, the former head of the PLO, was prevented once from coming to the United Nations, and the meeting was moved from New York, I think, to somewhere in Europe, to Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken, to accommodate him. This is still nonetheless historic and important. And again, another sign, in my view, of the Trump administration's commitment to Israel.
All right, just a few seconds left. Iran, European leaders are moving to reimpose sanctions over the Iran nuclear program. How do you think Tehran and some of its allies will respond?
Well, certainly I think it's a big deal. It packs more of a political punch than I would say an economic punch, because the Trump administration's maximum pressure sanctions are there and they're going full speed ahead, although I will say some of them do need to be dialed up. If we are going to link Iran to the UN General Assembly, however, in term one, Trump administration did restrict the access and the range, literally the blocks in New York City where some of these diplomats could go.
That's right.
I think in term two, they should actually revoke the visas for the Iranian delegation, more so than even the Palestinian delegation, but that's a different fight to have another day. I think certainly the Iranians would threaten to do things like leave the NPT in response to the European sanctions. But again, I think the more they do this, the more they realize they actually put more of a target on their back vis-a-vis a potential Israeli military option.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for coming in. Benham Ben Taleblu with Foundation for Defense of Democracies.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.